I want to know about you. Tell me about your...
Maui. Shapeshifter. You stole the heart. You'd be everyone's hero. Maui, you're so amazing. Look at...
What can I say except you're welcome? This mission... Where you gotta go? Maui's not spelled with a we, it's spelled with an I. Sometimes with a hero, and sometimes with a bait.
Welcome to Z Cineplex, say your ultimate entertainment destination. Welcome to Z Cineplex, the home of entertainment, creativity, and cinematic excitement. Our channel is dedicated to bringing viewers a rich collection of engaging content that celebrates the world of movies, storytelling, and visual entertainment. Whether you're a passionate film enthusiast, someone who enjoys discovering new cinematic experiences, or simply looking for high-quality entertainment, Z Cineplex is designed to be your go-to destination. We strive to create content that is informative, enjoyable, and engaging for audiences of all ages, offering a unique blend of movie-related features, entertainment updates, insightful discussions, creative videos, and much more. Every upload is crafted with attention to quality, ensuring that our viewers receive an enjoyable experience that keeps them coming back for more. At Z Cineplex, we believe that cinema is more than just watching films. It's about experiencing emotions, exploring stories, appreciating creativity, and connecting with people who share the same passion for entertainment. Our mission is to build a vibrant community where movie lovers and entertainment enthusiasts can discover exciting content, share their opinions, and stay connected with the latest trends in the entertainment industry. We are committed to consistently improving our content, embracing new ideas, and delivering videos that entertain, inform, and inspire our growing audience. Whether you're here for movie highlights, entertainment discussions, reviews, cinematic moments, or fresh creative content, Z Cineplex promises an enjoyable journey filled with excitement, quality, and unforgettable entertainment. Join our community by subscribing, turning on notifications, and becoming part of the Z Cineplex family as we continue to explore the fascinating world of cinema and entertainment together. Thank you for your support, and welcome to Z Cineplex, where every video brings entertainment to life. Moana is a 2026 American musical fantasy adventure film directed by Kail and his feature directorial debut, and written by Jared Bush and Dana LaDuMiller. Produced by Walt Disney Pictures in association with 7 Bucks Productions, Flynn Picture Co., and Lin-Manuel Miranda, the film is a live-action adaptation of Disney's critically acclaimed 2016 animated feature Moana. Serving as the first live-action installment in the Moana franchise, the film continues Disney's long-running strategy of reimagining its animated classics for modern audiences while retaining the heart of the original stories through updated filmmaking techniques, practical production design, and cutting-edge visual effects. Dwayne Johnson reprises his beloved role as the legendary demigod Maui, becoming one of the few actors to portray the same Disney character in both animated and live-action formats, while Australian actress Laga'aia makes her feature film debut as Moana, the courageous and determined daughter of Chief Tua, whose calling to the ocean leads her on a life-changing adventure. The supporting cast includes Rena Owen as Moana's grandmother Tala, John Tu as Chief Tua, Frankie Adams as Sina, and Jermaine Clement reprising his role as the flamboyant giant crab Tamatoa, alongside several new and returning characters inspired by the original film. The story faithfully adapts the central narrative of the 2016 classic, following Moana as she embarks on a perilous voyage across the Pacific Ocean to restore the stolen heart of Te Fiti, reverse the mysterious darkness consuming the islands, and embrace her destiny as the next great wayfinder of her people. Along the way, she forms an uneasy partnership with Maui, confronts legendary creatures rooted in Polynesian mythology, and discovers the importance of courage, identity, leadership, and the enduring connection between humanity and the ocean. The film features newly orchestrated live-action renditions of the original's iconic songs, including How Far I'll Go, You're Welcome, and We Know the Way, while also introducing several original musical numbers written specifically for the adaptation. Development of the live-action remake was officially announced by Dwayne Johnson during Disney's annual shareholders meeting in April 2023, only months before the release of Moana 2, with Johnson describing the project as a deeply personal tribute to his Samoan heritage and the culture that inspired the original film. Thomas Kail, best known for directing the Broadway phenomenon Hamilton, joined the project as director in May 2023, marking his transition into feature filmmaking. Original Moana creative contributors Jared Bush and Dana Ledoux Miller returned to write the screenplay, helping preserve the spirit and cultural authenticity of the animated film while adapting it for a live-action format. Johnson produced alongside Hiram Garcia, Danny Garcia, Beau Flynn, and Lin-Manuel Miranda, who also contributed as a producer and collaborated on the film's musical direction. In June 2024, following an extensive international casting search across the Pacific region, Disney announced that Laga'aia had been selected to portray Moana, with the casting receiving praise for introducing a young actress of Pacific Island heritage to lead one of Disney's biggest productions. Additional casting confirmed the returns of Johnson and Jermaine Clement, while Rena, Owen, John Tua, and Frankie Adams were cast as Moana's family, further strengthening the film's Polynesian representation. Principal photography commenced in July 2024 and concluded in November 2024, taking place across elaborate studio sets in Atlanta, Georgia, and on location in Hawaii. The production emphasized authentic Polynesian-inspired architecture, traditional costumes, handcrafted canoes, practical ocean environments, and expansive visual effects work, combining large-scale practical filmmaking with sophisticated CGI to recreate the breathtaking islands, oceans, mythical creatures, and supernatural elements of the original animated feature in live action. Moana premiered theatrically in the United States on July 10, 2026, with Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures handling its worldwide distribution. Positioned as one of Disney's biggest releases of the year, the film was supported by an extensive global marketing campaign highlighting its spectacular visuals, musical performances, and celebration of Polynesian culture. However, despite the enormous popularity of the original animated film and high audience anticipation, the live-action adaptation ultimately became a major commercial disappointment. Against a reported production budget of approximately $250 million, excluding substantial global marketing costs, the film grossed only about $95 million worldwide, making it one of Disney's lowest-performing live-action remakes and one of the studio's most significant box office failures of the decade. The disappointing theatrical performance was attributed to mixed audience interest, remake fatigue, intense competition from other summer releases, and criticism that the adaptation offered little that substantially differentiated it from its animated predecessor. Critical reception was generally negative, although many reviewers acknowledged several technical and performance-related strengths. Critics widely praised Laga'aia for delivering a charismatic and emotionally sincere breakout performance that captured Moana's courage, compassion, and determination, while Dwayne Johnson's energetic return as Maui was considered one of the film's highlights, successfully preserving much of the humor and charm that made the character popular in the original. The production design, elaborate costumes, scenic cinematography, orchestral score, and several of the musical sequences also received positive recognition for successfully translating the vibrant world of the animated film into live action. Nevertheless, Critics argued that the remake adhered too closely to the original narrative without offering meaningful reinterpretation or creative expansion, resulting in a film that often felt redundant rather than transformative. Additional criticism was directed toward its uneven pacing, inconsistent visual effects, diminished sense of wonder compared to the animated version, and a perceived lack of emotional freshness. Many reviewers concluded that while the film remained respectful toward Polynesian culture and mythology and preserved the inspirational themes of family, heritage, self-discovery, and environmental stewardship, it ultimately struggled to justify its existence as a live-action remake of a modern Disney classic that many believed remained definitive in its original animated form. On the lush Polynesian island of Maui, an isolated paradise surrounded by the vast Pacific Ocean, generations of islanders live peaceful lives sustained by the blessings of the goddess Te Fiti, a divine being who embodies the spirit of nature, creation, and life itself. At the center of Te Fiti's immense power is a glowing green Paunamu stone, known as her heart, which enables her to spread life across the ocean, allowing islands to flourish with fertile forests, abundant crops, and thriving marine life. According to ancient legend, Te Fiti's gift of creation maintained harmony between humanity and nature until the ambitious demigod Maui, a powerful shapeshifter celebrated for his heroic feats and magical fishhook, sought to steal the goddess's heart. Believing that humans deserved the power of creation and eager to earn their admiration and everlasting fame, Maui removes the heart from Te Fiti, unknowingly upsetting the natural balance of the world. Almost immediately, the once radiant goddess loses her life-giving essence, her island crumbles into ruin, and she transforms into the terrifying volcanic demon Tka, a manifestation of rage, pain, and loss. As Maui attempts to flee with the stolen heart, Tka attacks him in a devastating battle that sends shockwaves across the ocean. During the confrontation, Maui is struck down, his enchanted fishhook is badly damaged and lost beneath the sea along with the heart of Te Fiti, and the demigod himself vanishes from the world. In the centuries that follow, the darkness unleashed by the theft slowly spreads across the Pacific, poisoning once prosperous islands, killing plant life, driving away fish, and threatening the survival of every civilization connected to the ocean. Nearly 1,000 years later, the sentient ocean, recognizing that balance must be restored, chooses a spirited young girl named Moana, the daughter of Chief Tui and Sina, to become its champion. From early childhood, Moana displays an extraordinary connection to the sea, fearlessly exploring the shoreline and communicating with the ocean in ways no one else can. Although the ocean repeatedly reaches out to her and even entrusts her with the glowing heart of Te Fiti as a child, her father is deeply protective and forbids her from venturing beyond the island's surrounding reef. Haunted by a traumatic experience from his own youth, Chief Tui believes that the ocean is unpredictable and dangerous, insisting that their people have everything they need on Maui. As Moana grows into a compassionate, intelligent, and determined young woman preparing to inherit leadership of the island, she struggles to reconcile her responsibilities as the future chief with an irresistible desire to explore the horizon. While she dutifully learns the traditions of leadership, village life, and caring for her people, she cannot ignore the persistent feeling that the ocean is calling her toward a greater destiny. Her faithful pet pig Pua frequently accompanies her adventures, reflecting her playful spirit and love for the natural world. As Moana reaches the age of 16, the consequences of Maui's ancient mistake finally reach Maui. The island begins to suffer from a mysterious blight that blackens coconuts, withers vegetation, contaminates crops, and causes fish to disappear from the surrounding waters, threatening the survival of the entire community. Believing that the solution lies beyond the reef, Moana proposes sailing farther into the ocean to search for healthier fishing grounds and discover the source of the growing darkness. However, Chief Tui refuses to abandon the traditions that have kept their people safe for generations, firmly prohibiting any voyage beyond the reef despite Moana's growing concerns. Determined to prove herself and convinced that there must be answers beyond the horizon, Moana secretly launches a canoe and attempts to cross the reef. Although she briefly succeeds, the vast open ocean quickly overwhelms her with towering waves and powerful currents, capsizing her vessel and forcing her to retreat home in defeat. The experience leaves Moana frustrated and uncertain, torn between her obligations to her family and the undeniable calling she feels in her heart. Recognizing Moana's inner struggle, her beloved grandmother Tala, the eccentric village storyteller and spiritual guardian of Maui, reveals a secret that has remained hidden for generations. Leading Moana into a hidden cavern concealed beneath the island, Tala unveils an enormous fleet of beautifully preserved traditional voyaging canoes, proving that the people of Maui were once among the greatest navigators in the Pacific. She explains that before Maui stole Te Fiti's heart, their ancestors fearlessly explored the ocean, discovering new islands and forging connections across the seas. After darkness spread across the world and the ocean became increasingly dangerous, the voyagers abandoned their traditions and isolated themselves behind the reef, allowing centuries of exploration and navigation to fade into legend. Tala further explains that the blight devastating Maui is only one small part of a much larger catastrophe consuming islands throughout the Pacific, and reveals that only by returning the heart of Te Fiti can the natural balance of the world be restored. Entrusting Moana with the magical heart that the ocean had selected her to carry years earlier, Tala tells her that she has been chosen because she possesses the courage, compassion, and leadership needed to accomplish what no one else can. Shortly afterward, Tala becomes gravely ill, and on her deathbed she urges Moana to embrace her destiny, reminding her to listen to the voice inside herself and trust the ocean. After Tala's passing, Moana resolves to complete the mission her grandmother entrusted to her. Using one of the westward voyaging canoes hidden within the cavern, Moana sets sail alone across the vast Pacific, determined to locate Maui and persuade him to undo the mistake that doomed the world. Unbeknownst to her, the hopelessly incompetent but lovable Rooster High accidentally stows away aboard the canoe, providing unexpected comic relief throughout the dangerous journey. Before long, Moana encounters violent storms generated by the turbulent ocean, and her vessel is nearly destroyed before washing ashore on a remote island inhabited by the long-lost demigod Maui. Far removed from the legendary hero celebrated in stories, Maui has spent centuries stranded in isolation, becoming arrogant, boastful, and obsessed with restoring his own reputation. He initially dismisses Moana's plea to return Te Fiti's heart, believing that heroism is measured only through spectacular achievements and public admiration. Viewing Moana merely as a means of escaping the island, Maui traps her inside a cave, steals her canoe, and attempts to abandon her. However, the ocean repeatedly interferes on Moana's behalf, overturning Maui's plans and ensuring that she escapes to continue the mission. Realizing that the ocean itself refuses to let him abandon her, Maui reluctantly agrees to allow Moana to accompany him, although he remains motivated primarily by the desire to recover his own magical fishhook rather than save the world. Their uneasy partnership is immediately tested when they are ambushed by the Kokima'ura, a fierce tribe of tiny coconut-armored pirates who relentlessly pursue the heart of Te Fiti for their own mysterious purposes. After a thrilling chase across the open sea filled with daring maneuvers and narrow escapes, Moana's courage and quick thinking allowed the pair to evade the pirates. As their journey continues, Moana repeatedly challenges Maui to acknowledge the devastating consequences of his selfish actions, forcing him to confront the guilt he has buried for centuries. Eventually, Maui agrees to help restore the heart, but only after recovering his magical fishhook from Laga'aia, the dangerous realm of monsters. Descending into the bizarre underworld, they encounter Tamatoa, a gigantic, narcissistic crab who obsessively collects glittering treasures and proudly displays Maui's fishhook among his prized possessions. While Moana distracts Tamatoa through clever improvisation and fearless determination, Maui retrieves the hook. However, after centuries without it, he struggles to control his shape-shifting abilities, repeatedly transforming into incomplete animal forms and proving that he has lost confidence in himself. Although Tamatoa initially overpowers them, Moana devises an ingenious escape that allows both of them to flee safely with the recovered fishhook. Following their escape, Maui gradually reveals the emotional truth behind his bravado. He confesses that he was abandoned by his human parents as an infant and left alone in the ocean before the gods rescued him, granting him supernatural powers and his magical fishhook. Ever since, He has desperately sought humanity's acceptance through increasingly grand heroic deeds, believing that admiration is the only way to compensate for the love he never received as a child. Moana empathizes with Maui's pain and helps him understand that true heroism comes not from fame or magical abilities but from selflessness, responsibility, and compassion. As their friendship deepens, Maui teaches Moana the ancient traditions of celestial navigation, reading the stars, understanding ocean currents, and mastering the art of wayfinding. Together they overcome countless challenges across the open sea, transforming their relationship from reluctant allies into loyal friends who genuinely believe in one another. Eventually, Moana and Maui arrive at the desolate island where Te Fiti once flourished, only to discover that its entrance is completely blocked by the towering lava-covered form of Laga'aia. Refusing to abandon her mission, Moana courageously sails directly toward the fierce demon despite Maui's warnings. During the ensuing confrontation, Laga'aia launches devastating attacks that severely damage Maui's magical fishhook. Terrified of losing the one object that defines his identity and powers, Maui abandons the battle and flies away, leaving Moana devastated and convinced that she has failed the world. In despair, she surrenders the heart of Te Fiti back to the ocean and asks it to find someone else more worthy of the task. As the ocean gently carries the heart away, the spirit of grandmother Tala appears before Moana in the form of a glowing manta ray. Through an emotional conversation, Tala reminds her that courage is not the absence of fear but the willingness to continue despite it, encouraging Moana to remember who she truly is. Renewed with confidence and purpose, Moana retrieves the heart from the ocean and decides to complete the mission entirely on her own. As Moana sails back toward Laga'aia for one final confrontation, Maui experiences profound personal growth and realizes that abandoning Moana was repeating the same selfish mistake that doomed the world centuries earlier. Determined to redeem himself, he returns to fight beside her, risking everything to protect her long enough to reach Te Fiti. During the climactic battle, Maui's magical fishhook is shattered while defending Moana, symbolizing his willingness to sacrifice the source of his identity for the greater good. Upon reaching the center of the island, Moana discovers that Te Fiti herself has vanished. Carefully observing the landscape and remembering everything she has learned, she realizes that Laga'aia is not Te Fiti's enemy but Te Fiti herself, transformed into a creature of rage and destruction after losing her heart. Instead of attacking the monster, Moana compassionately calls out to her, recognizing the sadness hidden beneath centuries of anger. Responding to Moana's empathy, the ocean parts its waters, allowing Laga'aia to approach peacefully. Moana gently restores the heart of Te Fiti to its rightful place, instantly transforming the volcanic demon back into the radiant goddess. With her life-giving power restored, Te Fiti heals the poisoned ocean, restores dying forests and islands, replenishes marine life, and banishes the darkness that had plagued the Pacific for a millennium. Maui sincerely apologizes for the suffering he caused, and Te Fiti forgives him, repairing both his magical fishhook and Moana's canoe before peacefully returning to her eternal form as a flourishing island. With the world restored to harmony, Moana bids an emotional farewell to both Maui and Te Fiti before beginning her voyage home. Returning to Motui'i, she reunites joyfully with Chief Tua, Zena, Pua, and the entire village, who celebrate her incredible accomplishment and recognize her as the hero who saved not only their island but the entire Pacific. During a ceremonial gathering, Moana places her shell atop the sacred stack of stones representing generations of Motui'i's chiefs, symbolizing both her acceptance of leadership and the beginning of a new era for her people. However, rather than simply ruling from the island, Moana chooses to honor her ancestors by reviving their long-forgotten tradition of exploration. Under her leadership, the people of Motui'i restore their magnificent fleet of voyaging canoes and once again become master navigators of the Pacific. Guided by the stars and accompanied by the ever-watchful Maui soaring overhead, Moana leads her people into the open ocean, embracing her destiny as both the island's beloved chiefess and its greatest wayfinder, ensuring that the spirit of exploration, courage, and harmony with nature will endure for generations to come. Dwayne Johnson stars as Maui, the legendary shape-shifting demigod of the wind and sea whose enchanted fishhook grants him the extraordinary ability to transform into countless animals and perform seemingly impossible feats. Throughout Polynesian mythology, Maui is celebrated as a larger-than-life hero credited with shaping the natural world, slowing the sun, pulling items from the ocean, and performing miraculous acts for the benefit of humanity. Despite his legendary status, however, Maui is also deeply flawed, driven by an overwhelming desire for admiration and validation that stems from the emotional scars of being abandoned by his human parents as an infant. Hoping to win humanity's love forever, he steals the heart of Te Fiti, believing that granting mortals the power of creation will cement his legacy as the greatest hero who ever lived. Instead, his impulsive decision unleashes a catastrophic darkness across the Pacific, transforming the life-giving goddess Te Fiti into the volcanic demon Tka Diaresis and condemning the world to centuries of decay. Defeated during his confrontation with Tka Diaresis, Maui loses both his magical fishhook and the stolen heart before spending 1,000 years isolated from civilization, where his once confident personality gradually hardens into arrogance, insecurity, and emotional loneliness. When he finally encounters Moana, Maui initially refuses to take responsibility for his mistakes, caring only about recovering his fishhook and restoring his own reputation. As their adventure progresses, however, Moana's unwavering optimism, compassion, and belief in his better nature gradually help him confront the guilt he has carried for centuries. Through their growing friendship, Maui learns that true heroism is defined not by glory or praise but by sacrifice, humility, and accepting responsibility for one's actions. By the film's climax, he willingly risks everything, including the destruction of his treasured fishhook, to protect Moana and allow her to complete her mission, finally redeeming himself and reclaiming his identity as a genuine hero. Dwayne Johnson reprises the role he originally voiced in Disney's 2016 animated Moana and its sequel, becoming one of the few performers to portray the same Disney character in both animated and live-action form. His performance seamlessly combines physical acting, comedy, emotional vulnerability, musical performance, and elaborate visual effects work, faithfully recreating Maui's iconic larger-than-life personality while giving the character greater realism and emotional complexity. Catherine Laga'aia stars as Moana, the courageous, compassionate, intelligent, and fiercely determined daughter of Chief Tui and Sina, as well as the future leader of the Polynesian island of Maui. From the moment she is a young child, Moana shares an extraordinary bond with the ocean, which recognizes her pure heart and secretly chooses her to restore the heart of Te Fiti long before she understands the significance of her destiny. Although raised to inherit the responsibilities of village leadership, Moana constantly feels drawn toward the endless horizon beyond the reef, sensing that her purpose extends far beyond the boundaries of her island. Torn between honoring her father's wishes and following the mysterious call of the ocean, she struggles to reconcile duty with personal destiny until a devastating blight begins destroying Maui's crops, forests, and fishing grounds. Inspired by her grandmother Tala and entrusted with the sacred heart of Te Fiti, Moana embarks on a perilous voyage across the Pacific in search of the legendary demigod Maui. Throughout her journey, she faces violent storms, dangerous sea creatures, ruthless coconut pirates, mythical monsters, and seemingly impossible challenges, yet consistently overcomes every obstacle through intelligence, empathy, determination, and unwavering optimism rather than brute strength. As she learns the ancient traditions of celestial navigation and wayfinding, Moana gradually transforms from an uncertain teenager into a confident explorer, master navigator, and inspiring leader who earns the respect of both gods and humans alike. Her greatest strength ultimately proves to be her compassion, allowing her to recognize that Tka Diaresis is not an enemy to be defeated but the wounded goddess in need of healing. By restoring Te Fiti's heart through understanding rather than violence, Moana fulfills her destiny, saves the Pacific, and revives the voyaging traditions of her ancestors. Catherine Laga'aia, making her feature film debut, delivers a performance that captures Moana's warmth, emotional maturity, courage, curiosity, and resilience while leading the film's elaborate musical sequences, dramatic emotional moments, and physically demanding adventure scenes. Her portrayal introduces a new generation to one of Disney's most beloved heroines while honoring the cultural authenticity and spirit of the original animated character. Amaya Masoli portrays 8-year-old Moana, capturing the character's fearless curiosity, playful personality, and magical first encounters with the ocean, while Mapuaishe Payson appears as 4-year-old Moana, portraying the earliest moments of wonder and innocence that establish her lifelong connection to the sea and foreshadow her future destiny as the ocean's chosen wayfinder. Rena Owen portrays Grimatala, Moana's wise, eccentric, compassionate, and deeply spiritual grandmother, the mother of Chief Tua and one of the most respected elders of Maui, serving as both the village storyteller and the keeper of her people's forgotten history. Tala is the only member of the community who continues to embrace the ancient traditions of exploration and maintain an unshakable faith in the ocean. Unlike Chief Tua, who fears what lies beyond the reef, Tala recognizes that the ocean has chosen Moana for a greater purpose and becomes her strongest supporter throughout the story. She nurtures Moana's adventurous spirit from childhood, encouraging her to trust her instincts rather than allow fear to determine her future. Through heartfelt conversations, songs, and stories passed down across generations, Tala reveals the hidden cavern containing the ancestral voyaging fleet and explains the forgotten legacy of Maui's master navigators. Understanding that Moana alone possesses the courage and compassion necessary to restore balance to the world, Tala entrusts her granddaughter with the heart of Te Fiti before urging her to embrace her destiny. Even after her death, Tala continues to guide Moana spiritually, returning as a radiant manta ray whose appearance provides hope and encouragement during Moana's darkest hour, reminding her that true identity comes from listening to the voice within herself. Owen's emotionally rich performance balances warmth, humor, wisdom, and profound spirituality, making Tala the emotional heart of this story while emphasizing themes of family, ancestry, cultural identity, and the enduring connection between generations. John Tua portrays Chief Tua, the respected chief of Maui, husband of Sina, son of Tala, and devoted father of Moana. A courageous leader dedicated to protecting his people above all else, Tua governs with compassion, responsibility, and unwavering commitment to the safety of his island community. Having experienced personal tragedy connected to the ocean during his youth, he becomes convinced that venturing beyond the protective reef invites unnecessary danger, causing him to abandon the ancient voyaging traditions once practiced by his ancestors. This deeply rooted fear creates ongoing conflict with Moana, whose adventurous spirit constantly compels her to explore the open sea despite his repeated warnings. Throughout much of the story, Tua struggles to balance his role as a protective father with his responsibilities as chief, believing that keeping Moana close is the only way to ensure her safety. Although his decisions are motivated by love rather than control, they unintentionally prevent Moana from embracing the destiny the ocean has chosen for her. Following Moana's heroic return and the restoration of balance across the Pacific, Tua finally recognizes that his daughter's courage has accomplished what fear never could, allowing him to accept the revival of Maui's ancient voyaging traditions and proudly support her leadership. John Tua delivers a layered performance that portrays Chief Tua as a loving father, wise leader, and emotionally complex individual whose personal fears must ultimately give way to trust, hope, and acceptance. Frankie Adams portrays Sina, Moana's loving mother, devoted wife of Chief Tua and the chiefess of Maui. Kind, intelligent, nurturing, and emotionally perceptive, Sina provides a calm and compassionate influence within the island's royal family. While she supports her husband's efforts to protect their people, she also recognizes the adventurous spirit within their daughter and quietly encourages Moana's confidence and independence whenever possible. Throughout the story, Sina serves as a steady source of emotional comfort, offering wisdom, reassurance, and unconditional love without overshadowing Moana's own journey of self-discovery. She understands that true leadership requires both strength and compassion, qualities she consistently nurtures in her daughter as Moana prepares to inherit responsibility for Maui. Although her role is less action-oriented than many of the film's central characters, Sina represents the emotional stability of the family and the quiet resilience that holds the community together during times of uncertainty. Frankie Adams expands the character's presence in the live-action adaptation by portraying Sina with warmth, dignity, grace, and emotional authenticity, highlighting the important role she plays in shaping Moana into a compassionate future leader. Jermaine Clement reprises his role as the voice of Tamatoa, the enormous, flamboyant, narcissistic giant coconut crab who inhabits Laga'aia, the mysterious realm of monsters beneath the ocean. One of the most colorful and eccentric creatures in Polynesian mythology, Tamatoa possesses an obsessive fascination with beauty, wealth, and glittering objects, transforming his underground lair into a dazzling museum of stolen treasures collected over countless centuries. Among his most prized possessions is Maui's legendary magical fishhook, making him a crucial obstacle in Moana and Maui's quest to restore Te Fiti's heart. Despite his comedic personality and theatrical vanity, Tamatoa is an immensely dangerous adversary whose enormous size, armored shell, crushing claws, and overwhelming physical strength make him one of the film's most formidable creatures. His extravagant musical performance showcases his flamboyant ego, sarcastic wit, and love of spectacle while providing one of the story's most visually elaborate sequences through extensive visual effects and elaborate production design. Jermaine Clement once again brings his distinctive comedic timing, memorable vocal performance, and theatrical energy to the role, faithfully recreating the unforgettable villain from the animated original while adapting him to the more realistic visual style of the live-action film. Development of the live-action adaptation of Moana began well before its official announcement and reflected Disney's broader strategy of reimagining many of its most successful animated classics for a new generation of audiences. According to producer and star Dwayne Johnson, Walt Disney Pictures first approached him in 2019 with the concept of adapting the acclaimed 2016 animated film into a live-action feature. At the time, the project was in its earliest stages and remained highly confidential while Disney carefully evaluated whether Moana, one of the studio's most culturally significant and visually ambitious animated productions, could be successfully translated into live action. The studio spent several years exploring the project's creative direction, technical feasibility, and cultural responsibilities before publicly revealing its plans. Disney executives viewed Moana as an ideal candidate for adaptation due to its enduring worldwide popularity, exceptional performance on streaming platforms, strong merchandise sales, continued television viewership, and its status as one of the company's most beloved modern animated films. During this early development period, filmmakers and producers focused on preserving the emotional heart of the original story while determining how modern filmmaking technology, large-scale practical filmmaking, advanced visual effects, and immersive production techniques could recreate the vast Pacific Ocean, the mythical island of Maui, and the fantastical creatures of Polynesian mythology in a realistic cinematic environment. Extensive discussions also centered on ensuring that the live-action version would respectfully honor Polynesian traditions, history, language, music, dance, navigation, and storytelling, maintaining the authenticity that had been a defining strength of the original animated feature. The project was officially unveiled on April 3, 2023, during the Walt Disney Company's annual shareholders meeting, where Dwayne Johnson introduced the film through a special video presentation filmed on the Hawaiian island of Owen, surrounded by the Pacific landscapes that inspired the original story. In his announcement, Johnson confirmed that he would reprise his fan-favorite role as the legendary demigod Maui, becoming one of the few Disney performers to portray the same character in both an animated film and its live-action adaptation. He also revealed that he would produce the film through 7 Bucks Productions, alongside Danny Garcia, Hiram Garcia, and Beau Flynn for Flynn Picture Co. Johnson described the adaptation as one of the most meaningful projects of his career, emphasizing that Moana represents far more than entertainment for him because it reflects his Samoan heritage, his family's history, and the traditions of the Polynesian people. He explained that Maui was partially inspired by the life and legacy of his maternal grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia, making the opportunity to portray the character again both deeply personal and emotionally significant. Johnson stated that revisiting Maui would allow him to celebrate Polynesian culture on an even larger cinematic scale while honoring generations of storytellers, navigators, warriors, musicians, dancers, and communities whose traditions inspired the original film. He expressed his hope that the adaptation would continue introducing audiences around the world to the richness, resilience, and beauty of Pacific Island cultures while remaining faithful to the spirit of the animated classic. At the same announcement, Disney confirmed that Laga'aia Kravlo, who voiced Moana in the 2016 animated feature, would return to the project as an executive producer rather than reprising the title role. Kravlo publicly explained that, although Moana had transformed her life and career, she believed it was important for another young actress of Pacific Island descent to have the opportunity to embody the character in live action. She expressed pride in helping guide the production behind the scenes, ensuring that the adaptation remained respectful of Polynesian cultures and continued the legacy established by the original film. Her involvement as an executive producer reflected Disney's commitment to maintaining creative continuity while also providing new opportunities for authentic Pacific Island representation both in front of and behind the camera. Disney executives also addressed the unusually short period between the release of the original animated feature and its live-action remake, with only 7 years separating the two films. Moana became one of Disney's fastest animated classics to receive a live-action adaptation. Sean Bailey, then president of production for Disney Live Action, explained that the decision was influenced by several factors, including the Walt Disney Company's 100th anniversary celebration and the extraordinary longevity of Moana's popularity. Bailey noted that years after its theatrical release, the animated film had become one of Disney's most streamed titles worldwide, consistently ranking among the most viewed family films across Disney Plus and other distribution platforms while continuing to generate strong consumer demand through home entertainment, television broadcasts, theme parks, and merchandise. Disney believed that Moana had evolved beyond being a successful animated film into a globally recognized cultural phenomenon whose audience continued to grow. Advances in digital filmmaking, virtual production, motion capture techniques, realistic CGI water simulation, environmental rendering, and large-scale practical production also convinced the studio that contemporary filmmaking technology had finally reached the point where the vast ocean environments, mythical creatures, shape-shifting abilities, and magical elements central to the story could be recreated convincingly in live action without sacrificing the emotional intimacy, visual beauty, or cultural authenticity of the original. On May 31, 2023, Disney announced that acclaimed stage and television director Thomas Kail would direct the adaptation, marking his feature narrative directorial debut. Kail had previously earned widespread acclaim for directing the original Broadway production of Hamilton, as well as Disney's filmed version of the musical released on Disney Plus in 2020. In addition to numerous award-winning stage productions and television projects, his appointment signaled Disney's intention to place significant emphasis on the film's musical storytelling, emotional character relationships, and dramatic performances while blending theatrical sensibilities with large-scale cinematic spectacle. The screenplay was written by returning Moana creative leaders Jared Bush and Dana LaDue Miller, allowing the adaptation to benefit from filmmakers who were deeply familiar with the characters, mythology, humor, emotional arcs, and cultural foundations established in the original film. Their approach involved reworking portions of the animated screenplay to better suit live-action performances while expanding character interactions, deepening emotional themes, and adapting action sequences for a more grounded cinematic experience. The production was developed jointly by Walt Disney Pictures, Seven Bucks Productions, and Flint Picture Co., with original songwriter Lin-Manuel Miranda returning as a producer while contributing to the film's musical development alongside returning composers Mark Mancina and Opata Ifoi. Disney committed one of its largest production budgets to the adaptation, with industry reports estimating costs between $200 million and $250 million, placing Moana among the studio's most expensive live-action productions. The substantial investment reflected the enormous technical demands of recreating the film's expansive ocean environments, elaborate musical sequences, complex visual effects, large-scale practical sets, extensive costume design, creature animation, and location photography. Throughout late 2023 and into 2024, the production entered an extensive pre-production phase involving worldwide casting searches, detailed concept art development, costume and prop creation inspired by traditional Polynesian craftsmanship, choreography for musical and ceremonial sequences, visual effects planning, stunt coordination, and the construction of large practical environments representing the island of Maui and other key locations. Extensive location scouting was conducted in Hawaii and Georgia, while Disney worked closely with Pacific Island cultural consultants, historians, navigators, artists, linguists, and community leaders to ensure that the adaptation respectfully portrayed Polynesian traditions, architecture, navigation, tattoo artistry, ceremonial customs, and cultural identity. This collaborative development process sought to balance cutting-edge filmmaking technology with cultural authenticity, ensuring that the live-action Moana would honor the legacy of the original film while introducing its timeless story to a new generation of audiences on an even grander cinematic scale. Casting for the live-action adaptation of Moana was originally expected to begin shortly after the project's official announcement in 2023. However, the casting process was significantly delayed by the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, which brought much of Hollywood film and television production to a standstill and temporarily suspended casting activities across numerous major studio projects. As a result, Disney postponed its worldwide search for performers until after the strike concluded on November 8, 2023, allowing the production to resume negotiations, auditions, and screen tests. One of the studio's highest priorities was finding an actress of authentic Pacific Island heritage to portray Moana, reflecting Disney's commitment to accurate cultural representation and honoring the Polynesian roots of the story. Producers conducted an extensive international casting search, seeking a performer who could embody the character's courage, compassion, determination, leadership, and adventurous spirit while also possessing the vocal and dramatic abilities required for the film's musical sequences. The search reportedly included emerging talent from across New Zealand, Australia, Hawaii, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, and other Pacific Island communities. In February 2024, producer and star Dwayne Johnson revealed that the role of Moana had already been cast but chose not to disclose the actress's identity, explaining that Disney wanted to preserve the announcement for a later date. Johnson praised the young actress's remarkable talent, authenticity, and emotional connection to the character, expressing confidence that audiences would embrace the new incarnation of Moana once she was officially introduced. Disney formally unveiled the principal cast on June 12, 2024, announcing that Catherine Laga'aia, a young Australian actress of Samoan heritage, had been selected to portray Moana. Laga'aia's casting was widely praised as a continuation of Disney's commitment to authentic Pacific Island representation. Following the announcement, Laga'aia expressed her excitement and gratitude for the opportunity to portray such an iconic Disney heroine, describing the role as both an incredible honor and a deeply personal experience because of her own Samoan ancestry. She stated that she hoped to inspire young Pacific Island audiences by bringing Moana's courage, resilience, compassion, and adventurous spirit to life while celebrating the traditions and cultures that inspired the story. Disney also emphasized that Laga'aia's heritage, natural charisma, acting ability, and musical talent made her an ideal choice to lead the live-action adaptation. The same announcement confirmed that John Tua had been cast as Chief Tua, Moana's protective father, and the respected leader of Maui Frankie Adams would portray Sina, Moana's supportive and compassionate mother, and acclaimed New Zealand actress Rena Owen would play Grimatala, Moana's wise grandmother and spiritual guide whose encouragement inspires Moana to embrace her destiny. The casting reunited several performers with strong ties to Polynesian storytelling and Pacific cinema, reinforcing Disney's goal of assembling a cast that authentically reflected the cultures represented in the film. For John Tue, the project marked his third collaboration with Dwayne Johnson, following their previous work together on Fast Furious Presents, Hobbs Shaw, 2019, and the NBC sitcom Young Rock, 2021–a 2023. Alongside the casting announcement, Disney confirmed that the screenplay was written by returning Moana creative leaders Jared Bush and Dana LaDue-Miller, both of whom had played major creative roles in the original animated film and its franchise, with LaDue-Miller also serving as one of the directors of Moana 2. Their continued involvement helped ensure creative continuity between the animated and live-action versions while expanding the story for a more grounded cinematic experience. As casting continued throughout 2024, Disney sought performers capable of balancing dramatic performances, musical storytelling, and large-scale adventure while remaining faithful to the emotional heart of the original film. The production's emphasis on casting actors of genuine Pacific Island heritage was widely regarded as one of the defining aspects of the adaptation, reflecting the studio's ongoing commitment to cultural authenticity, respectful representation, and collaboration with Polynesian communities both in front of and behind the camera. Principal photography on the live-action adaptation of Moana officially commenced on July 29, 2024, with filming beginning in Atlanta, Georgia, under the working title Canon. The production had originally been scheduled to start much earlier, with Disney initially planning an October 2023 start before the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike forced the studio to postpone filming. Following the resolution of the labor dispute, production was rescheduled for June 2024 under the temporary working title Motorheads, before being pushed back slightly to late July as final pre-production, casting, location preparations, and logistical planning were completed. The film was produced as one of Disney's largest live-action productions, utilizing extensive soundstage work, practical set construction, large-scale water tanks, advanced motion control camera systems, and cutting-edge visual effects technology to recreate the mythical Polynesian world first introduced in the 2016 animated feature. Much of the early production took place at Trilith Studios and other production facilities in the Atlanta metropolitan area, where enormous practical sets representing the island village of Matui, ceremonial gathering spaces, traditional Polynesian homes, forests, beaches, and coastal environments were constructed. These sets allowed filmmakers to combine practical filmmaking with sophisticated digital enhancements while maintaining a grounded and authentic visual style. The Georgia locations also provided controlled studio environments for the film's elaborate musical performances, action sequences, stunt work, and complex visual effects photography, including scenes involving Maui's magical shape-shifting abilities, the living ocean, and numerous mythological creatures. Director Thomas Kail worked closely with production designers, choreographers, stunt coordinators, and cultural consultants throughout filming to ensure that every aspect of the production balanced cinematic spectacle with respect for Polynesian traditions, architecture, navigation, dance, and storytelling. Following the completion of the studio-based portion of production, filming moved to Hawaii, where the cast and crew captured extensive location photography across the island's lush tropical landscapes, volcanic coastlines, beaches, waterfalls, forests, and open ocean environments. The Hawaiian locations provided the film with authentic Pacific scenery that closely reflected the visual inspiration behind the animated original while enhancing the realism of the live-action adaptation. The production made extensive use of natural landscapes alongside specially constructed practical sets, allowing cinematographer Atilda Scarfora to capture sweeping panoramic vistas, expansive ocean photography, and intimate character moments using a combination of large-format digital cameras, aerial cinematography, drone photography, underwater camera systems, and carefully choreographed natural lighting. Principal photography officially concluded in Hawaii on November 22, 2024, marking the end of nearly 4 months of filming across multiple locations. Academy Award-nominated cinematographer Atilde Scarfora, best known for his collaborations with director J.A. Bayona, served as director of photography, bringing a cinematic visual style that emphasized natural lighting, vibrant tropical landscapes, dramatic ocean imagery, and emotionally intimate character compositions. His work sought to translate the colorful aesthetic of the animated film into a realistic live-action environment while preserving the sense of wonder and scale that defined the original. The production also relied heavily on extensive practical effects, elaborate stunt choreography, motion control photography, and advanced virtual production techniques to seamlessly integrate live-action performances with computer-generated environments and fantasy elements. The film's visual effects were supervised by Academy Award-winning visual effects artist Bill Westendhofer, whose previous work includes Life of Pi, 2012, for which he received the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, as well as numerous large-scale fantasy and blockbuster productions. Westendhofer joined Moana after departing Marvel Studios' Captain America, Brave New World, 2025, overseeing one of Disney's most technically ambitious visual effects productions. His team was responsible for creating realistic digital oceans, magical water simulations, Maui's supernatural shape-shifting transformations, the sentient ocean, mythical creatures, and numerous other fantasy elements while blending them seamlessly with the film's practical photography. Advanced simulation technology was used extensively to recreate realistic waves, storms, ocean currents, and water interactions that served as both environmental effects and emotional storytelling devices throughout the film. During post-production, reports emerged in August 2025 that Disney had explored the possibility of using AI-generated facial compositing technology developed by Metaphysic to digitally recreate Dwayne Johnson's likeness for a limited number of shots involving demanding stunt sequences. The proposed technology would have placed an AI-generated version of Johnson's face onto the performances of a body double with the actor's approval, potentially reducing the need for additional photography while maintaining visual continuity. However, despite initial experimentation, Disney ultimately decided not to proceed with the technology. According to reports, the studio abandoned the idea amid growing public debate, industry concerns, and increasing governmental scrutiny regarding the ethical use and regulation of artificial intelligence within filmmaking. The decision reflected Disney's desire to avoid controversy surrounding AI-generated performances while preserving traditional visual effects techniques and live-action performances as the primary means of completing the film. Editing was handled by Melanie Oliver, who assembled the film's narrative by combining live-action footage, musical sequences, practical effects, visual effects work, and large-scale action set pieces into a cohesive cinematic experience. Throughout post-production, Oliver collaborated closely with Thomas Kail, the visual effects department, composers, sound designers, and the editorial team to balance the film's emotional storytelling with its expansive fantasy spectacle. The extensive post-production process included months of visual effects rendering, color grading, sound design, orchestral scoring, musical integration, dialogue recording, and final mastering, resulting in one of the most technically sophisticated productions ever undertaken by Walt Disney Pictures for a live-action adaptation of one of its modern animated classics. The live-action adaptation of Moana was released theatrically on July 10, 2026, by Walt Disney Pictures, arriving in cinemas exactly 1 decade after the release of the original animated film on November 23, 2016. The release date was strategically chosen to coincide with the 10th anniversary celebration of the Moana franchise, allowing Disney to mark the milestone with a major cinematic event and introduce a new live-action interpretation of the story to audiences worldwide. The film was positioned as one of Disney's major theatrical releases of 2026, benefiting from the franchise's continued popularity, the success of the original animated film, and renewed audience interest following the expansion of the series. The film received a wide theatrical release in multiple formats, including premium large-format presentations such as IMAX, offering audiences an enhanced viewing experience with expanded visuals, immersive sound, and a larger-scale presentation designed to showcase the film's expansive ocean landscapes, musical sequences, action scenes, and visual effects spectacle. The IMAX release was part of Disney's broader strategy to position Moana as a major cinematic adventure rather than simply another animated remake, emphasizing the scale of the live-action production, the beauty of its Pacific-inspired environments, and the technical achievements involved in bringing the world of Maui to life. The release date had previously been planned for June 27, 2025, when Disney initially announced the live-action adaptation as part of its upcoming theatrical slate. However, following the announcement of the animated sequel Moana 2, Disney decided to postpone the live-action film by approximately 1 year to July 10, 2026. The delay was intended to create a greater separation between the two projects, allowing each film to receive its own marketing campaign, theatrical spotlight, and audience attention rather than having two Moana releases compete closely with one another. The decision also provided additional time for the live-action production team to complete the extensive visual effects work, post-production process, musical development, and final refinements required for the large-scale adaptation. By scheduling the film for 2026, Disney aimed to capitalize on the continued cultural impact of the franchise while celebrating the legacy of the original animated feature. The theatrical release represented a significant milestone for the Moana brand, bringing together returning creative collaborators, a new generation of cast members, and advanced filmmaking technology to reintroduce the story of Moana and Maui to global audiences in a new live-action format. The release strategy reflected Disney's confidence in the franchise's long-term appeal and its belief that Moana had developed into one of the studio's defining modern properties, capable of connecting with audiences across generations through themes of identity, family, courage, exploration, and cultural heritage. As of July 12, 2026, Disney's live-action adaptation of Moana had earned approximately $43.1 million in the United States and Canada and $52.4 million from international markets, bringing its total worldwide gross to approximately $95.6 million. The film's box office performance fell significantly below early industry expectations, particularly considering the popularity of the original 2016 animated film, which became one of Disney's most successful modern animated releases and developed a strong global fan base through theatrical success, streaming popularity, and its cultural impact. Although the live-action remake benefited from brand recognition, returning elements of the original story, and the involvement of major franchise figures, it failed to generate the level of audience turnout typically associated with Disney's large-scale live-action adaptations. The weaker-than-expected theatrical performance raised concerns about the film's profitability, particularly due to its substantial production budget and worldwide marketing campaign. Following the disappointing opening weekend results, industry analysts estimated that Moana could potentially become a significant financial setback for Disney, with Deadline Hollywood projecting that the film could lose the studio between $100 million and $125 million after accounting for production costs, promotional expenses, distribution fees, and the percentage of ticket revenue retained by theaters. The projected losses place the film among the more notable commercial disappointments within Disney's recent live-action remake strategy, which had previously produced several major global hits but had also experienced increasing struggles with audience interest in recent years. Prior to its theatrical release, Moana was expected to achieve a much stronger opening performance. Box office analysts initially projected that the film would earn between $60 million and $65 million during its opening weekend in the United States and Canada, with the film scheduled to open in approximately 3,875 theaters nationwide. Internationally, expectations suggested that the movie could generate the worldwide debut of around $130 million, which would have represented a solid opening for a Disney live-action remake, even though it would still rank among the lower global debuts compared with earlier adaptations such as The Lion King, 2019, Beauty and the Beast, 2017, and Aladdin, 2019. The optimistic forecasts were largely based on the continued popularity of the original animated film, the recognizable characters of Moana and Maui, and Disney's history of successfully transforming animated classics into live-action theatrical events. However, momentum weakened quickly after early ticket sales and opening day results failed to match expectations. The film earned approximately $18 million on its opening day, including Thursday night preview screenings, causing analysts to significantly lower their projections. Revised estimates placed the domestic opening weekend in the range of $42 million to $46 million, reflecting concerns that the film was not attracting the same level of urgency from moviegoers as previous Disney adaptations. Despite strong awareness of the franchise, audience interest appeared more limited, with many viewers choosing to wait for the film's eventual streaming release rather than purchasing theatrical tickets. The film ultimately debuted with approximately $43 million in the United States and Canada and around $52 million from international territories, producing a worldwide opening weekend total of roughly $95 million. While the global debut was not considered a complete failure in isolation, it was viewed as a major disappointment relative to Disney's expectations, especially given the scale of the franchise and the company's investment in the production. Several entertainment industry publications characterized the opening as a box office misfire, noting that the film significantly underperformed compared with previous Disney live-action remakes and failed to capitalize on the widespread popularity of the original animated version. Domestically, the opening weekend ranked among the lowest theatrical launches for a Disney live-action adaptation. The film opened below Dumbo, 2019, which debuted with approximately $46 million, but performed slightly above Snow White, 2025, which opened with around $42.2 million. This placed Moana among a growing group of Disney remake projects that struggled to reproduce the commercial impact of earlier successes. While some previous adaptations benefited from nostalgia and broad four-quadrant audience appeal, recent releases faced more challenges as audiences became increasingly selective about returning to theaters for familiar stories. Several factors were identified as contributing to the film's underperformance. One major reason cited by analysts was increasing audience fatigue with Disney's live-action remake formula, as the studio had released numerous adaptations of its animated classics over more than a decade. While early remakes generated significant excitement due to their novelty, some audiences became less interested in revisiting stories they had already experienced in animated form. Additionally, Moana entered a highly competitive theatrical environment, where multiple major releases competed for audience attention and family moviegoers. The film also faced competition from Disney's own major animated release Toy Story 5, which created an unusual situation in which two Disney properties competed for similar family audiences during the same period. This internal competition may have divided ticket sales and reduced the theatrical impact of Moana. Furthermore, changing audience habits, increased reliance on streaming platforms, and uncertainty surrounding live-action adaptations of animated films contributed to a more challenging marketplace. Despite its disappointing theatrical performance, Moana retained significant advantages through its established fan base, recognizable characters, and potential long-term value through home entertainment and streaming platforms. However, its opening results demonstrated the difficulties Disney faced in maintaining the same level of success achieved by earlier live-action remakes. The film's box office performance became another example of how franchise recognition alone was no longer enough to guarantee a major theatrical success, with audiences increasingly demanding either a fresh interpretation of familiar material or compelling reason to experience the story on the big screen. The live-action adaptation of Moana received a mixed to negative critical response, with many reviewers recognizing the enduring appeal of the original 2016 animated film while expressing disappointment that the remake offered little creative expansion beyond recreating the existing story. Critics generally agreed that the film benefited from the strength of its source material, including its memorable characters, emotional themes, cultural elements, and popular musical numbers. but many felt that the adaptation struggled to justify its existence as a separate cinematic experience. The central criticism surrounding the film was that it was too committed to reproducing the animated original rather than reinterpreting it, resulting in a remake that felt more like a polished recreation than a fresh retelling. While some reviewers praised the film's performances, production values, visual effects, and ability to introduce the Moana story to a new audience, others argued that the adaptation lacked the creativity, emotional impact, and sense of discovery that made the original film successful. Many critics questioned Disney's decision to remake an animated film that was still relatively recent and widely available, suggesting that the live-action version did not bring enough new ideas, character development, or thematic depth to distinguish itself from the 2016 release. The overall critical consensus was that the animated Moana remained the stronger and more imaginative version, with the live-action adaptation serving primarily as a faithful but unnecessary recreation. On the review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, Moana holds an approval rating of 33% based on 161 critic reviews, with an average rating of 4.8. The website's critical consensus stated, "The sea calls to no one in this underwhelming new version of Moana, a rather lifeless endeavor that solidifies its animated predecessor as the superior adventure." The score placed the film among the more poorly received Disney live-action adaptations, reflecting widespread criticism that the remake failed to capture the originality, charm, and emotional energy of the animated film. Critics on the platform acknowledged that the movie retained many of the qualities that audiences loved about the original, including the relationships between Moana and Maui, the adventurous storyline, and the memorable songs, but they argued that these strengths belonged primarily to the original material rather than the new adaptation. Many Rotten Tomatoes reviewers specifically criticized the film's lack of innovation. While the performances were generally considered competent, critics argued that the actors were often recreating familiar moments rather than offering significantly different interpretations of their characters. The film's emotional scenes, musical sequences, and major story developments were viewed as too similar to the animated version, leaving little room for surprise or meaningful reinvention. Several reviewers suggested that audiences who already loved the 2016 film would find little reason to choose the live-action version over the original, which remained more visually expressive and stylistically unique. On Metacritic, the film received a score of 42 out of 100 based on 40 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. The Metacritic result reflected a more moderate but still critical response, with reviewers acknowledging the technical craftsmanship of the production while questioning its artistic purpose. Critics generally agreed that Disney delivered a professionally made family adventure with impressive visuals, elaborate sets, and strong production design, but many felt that the film lacked the creative ambition expected from a major remake. The score suggested that while the movie was not considered a complete failure, it was viewed as a missed opportunity to expand the Moana universe or provide a deeper exploration of its characters and mythology. Audience reactions, however, were noticeably more positive compared with professional critics. Viewers surveyed by CinemaScore awarded the film an average grade of an A+ to F scale, indicating that general audiences found the movie enjoyable and emotionally satisfying. Families, younger viewers, and fans of the original animated film responded more favorably to the familiar story, returning characters, musical elements, and adventure-focused storytelling. The stronger audience response highlighted a recurring divide seen with many franchise adaptations, where critics often judge a remake based on originality and artistic necessity, while audiences may value familiarity, entertainment, and emotional connection. One of the most common criticisms was the film's extremely close resemblance to the original animated version. Writing for Polygon, critic Tasha Robinson argued that almost every major element of the remake, including dialogue, story structure, character interactions, and musical moments, was directly carried over from the 2016 film. Robinson noted that the new version contained only minor additions, such as small comedic changes or expanded moments, but lacked significant creative differences. She criticized the adaptation for failing to provide a strong artistic reason for existing, arguing that it functioned more as a reproduction of the original rather than a reinterpretation. Robinson's criticism reflected a broader concern among reviewers that Disney's approach to live-action remakes had become increasingly focused on recreating successful animated films rather than reimagining them. Critics argued that earlier remakes had occasionally succeeded because they expanded their source material, introduced new perspectives, or explored characters in greater depth. However, Moana was viewed as an example where excessive faithfulness became a weakness, limiting the filmmaker's ability to introduce new ideas or create a distinct identity. Similarly, IndieWire critic Wilson Chapman described Moana as one of Disney's most faithful remakes, stating that the film followed the original version with such precision that it resembled an almost shot-for-shot recreation. Chapman argued that the filmmakers prioritized accuracy over creativity, reproducing the original film structure and emotional beats rather than developing a new cinematic interpretation. While he recognized the technical achievement involved in recreating the animated film in live-action form, he questioned whether such a direct approach provided enough value for audiences who had already experienced and appreciated the original. Chapman's review emphasized that the remake missed opportunities to expand the mythology of the world of Moana, explore Polynesian culture in greater detail, or provide additional character development. Instead of adding new dimensions to Moana's journey or Maui's backstory, the film largely followed the same narrative path, resulting in a familiar experience that some critics described as predictable. More negative reactions came from critics who felt the film failed on both creative and visual levels. Clarice Lowry of The Independent gave the film a 1 out of 5-star review, criticizing its overall presentation and describing it as lacking the visual excitement and cinematic magic expected from a major Disney production. Lowry specifically criticized elements of the film's design, including Dwayne Johnson's portrayal of Maui, arguing that certain visual choices weakened the film's impact. Her review suggested that the remake lacked the imagination and artistic personality that distinguished the animated version. However, some critics found value in the film despite its limitations. Liz Shannon Miller of Consequence gave the adaptation a bar rating, arguing that while it did not surpass or significantly improve upon the original, it remained an enjoyable family adventure. Miller noted that the film avoided some of the major issues found in other recent Disney adaptations and praised its performances, accessibility, and ability to entertain younger audiences. She suggested that viewers approaching the film as a straightforward retelling rather than a revolutionary remake could still find enjoyment in it. Marshall Schaffer of The Playlist offered a more humorous and critical perspective, suggesting that the film's greatest strength might come from accidental viewing through streaming platforms rather than theatrical enthusiasm. Schaffer argued that because the original animated film remained widely available and was generally considered superior, many viewers would naturally return to the earlier version instead of choosing the remake. His comments reflected the large debate surrounding Disney's remake strategy and whether audiences still desired live-action versions of recently released animated classics. One of the strongest criticisms came from Melissa Wilkinson of The New York Times, who described the film as among the weakest examples of Disney's live-action remake approach. Wilkinson argued that the remake represented the problems associated with transforming animated classics into live-action films without a clear creative purpose. She suggested that the adaptation existed primarily because of the commercial value of an established franchise rather than because filmmakers had a compelling new vision for the story. According to Wilkinson, the remake lacked the imagination, emotional resonance, and sense of wonder that helped make the original Moana successful. Overall, Moana was regarded by critics as a technically polished but creatively limited remake. The film succeeded in preserving the recognizable characters, songs, and emotional themes that audiences loved, and its strong cinema score rating demonstrated that many viewers enjoyed returning to the world of Moana. However, professional critics largely agreed that the adaptation did not offer enough new material to stand alongside the original. Instead of expanding the franchise or reinventing the story, the live-action version was viewed as a highly faithful recreation that ultimately reinforced the belief that the 2016 animated film remained the definitive and superior version of Moana's adventure. Review 1 Disney's original 2016 animated movie Moana is a powerful fable about identity. The theme runs through every character arc, with the protagonist Moana, Alia Kravlo, her reluctant demigod ally Maui, Dwayne Johnson, and monstrous antagonist tka Diaresis, no voice credit, all suffering from various identity crises that need to be resolved. Every one of Lin-Manuel Miranda's powerful songs incorporates the idea of characters defining themselves. All of them have lyrics built around some variation of "Who am I? Here's who I am, we know who we are, or you know who you really are." So it's sad to see Disney's 2026 live-action version parroting that theme while lacking any identity of its own. Virtually every line, beat, and song in the new movie is identical to the 2016 version, apart from a few minor punch-ups or extra comedy tags here and there. At this point, there's no question why Disney keeps green-lighting these live-action remakes. Nearly all of them make huge piles of money, but there's no artistic or aesthetic reason for the live-action Moana to exist. The best of Disney's live-action rewrites add some sort of new spin or distinctive conceptual voice into the mix. The 2026 Moana is just a glossy digital clone of the original. Once again, Polynesian princess, not a princess, but still obviously a princess, Moana, now played by newcomer Catherine Laga'aia, chafes at the restrictions her well-meaning parents, John Tui and Frankie Adams, have put on her. Moana loves the sea, her name is the Diaresis word for ocean, and longs to sail away from the paradisiacal island of Maui, where she's expected to succeed her father as chieftain. Chief Tui has forbidden anyone to leave Maui, but Moana has to defy that rule when the island begins to die. The demigod Maui, Johnson again, has stolen the heart of the mother island goddess Te Fiti, letting a poisonous rot into the world. Moana has to leave her island, learn to sail, find Maui, bring him the heart, convince him to be a hero, and restore Te Fiti in order to save her people. That story returns beat for beat in the live-action movie, with minimal changes. Johnson gets a few new lines as Maui, the rakish, narcissistic shape-shifting demigod, and fan-favorite Dumb Chicken Hi gets a few more visual gags. Alan Tudyk voiced him in the original. This time out, he doesn't have a voice credit. It isn't quite a shot-for-shot remake. Comparing any given scene, it's clear that the angles and visual focus vary. Director Thomas Kail, who helmed Disney's live-on-Broadway Hamilton movie, makes more time for Polynesian dance in particular, with Laga'aia, her parents, and a large cast of extras adding synchronized movement to their village rituals. There are inherent differences here, particularly in Maui. The animated version is more cartoonish than most of the other characters, with improbably square dimensions and a smooth, timeless, presumably immortal face. Johnson is 54 years old, and while he wears it well, he's a craggier, more obviously worn-in version of the character. He's still cartoonish, both in his glib, outsized personality and in his outsized body, achieved with 40 pounds of muscle-enhancing prosthetics. Just as in the original movie, his tattoos are animated, with a little mini-me version of himself on his left pectoral adding constant comic punctuation to scenes. But Maui still seems more human in this movie. Kail and the screenwriters, returning writer Jared Bush and monitors Daniel Adu Miller, correspondingly toned down Maui's goofy physical comedy a tad, and give him more gravity. He still gets a CG shark head when his shape-shifting powers go awry, for instance, but doesn't deliberately return to that form for a light-hearted chuckle in the final battle with tka Diaresis. Similarly, there's an obvious difference in setting the movie in a real, physical world, though in this case, it matters considerably less than in a movie like Disney's live-action Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella. While the film was shot in Hawaii, and some significant percentage of the environment is presumably authentic, there are so many digital characters, effects, and settings that the whole movie has a slick digital gloss, and nothing looks particularly real. Hi and Moana's pet pig Pua are virtually identical to their animated movie counterparts, apart from more shading and shadows, and the giant singing crab Tamatoa, again voiced by Jermaine Clement, comes with more visual detail but the same basic digital design. Everything here looks expensive, but almost nothing has meaningful, physical weight. The one exception is the background cast, the Maui villagers, who come with a level of specificity and individuality that's unique to human actors. In this version, they vary more widely in body type and facial shape, in all the little details that make up humanity. They don't have any more significant role to play. They're effectively elaborate human set dressing. But there's still a difference between seeing animated generalizations of brown-skinned people, and seeing real ones celebrated on screen for their physical diversity, athletic ability, distinctive cultural heritage, and community. Laga'aia herself is an impressive screen presence. She isn't always the most natural actor, as some scenes in the live-action movie play as if all the performers are reading aloud from billboards. The animated character's easy smile sometimes looks forced and artificial on a real face, but Laga'aia's vocal performance and physicality are convincing in the role, particularly in the frequent moments when she's asked to embody defiance and a stubborn, strong will. For the most part, though, there aren't many surprises at all. For someone who's never seen the animated Moana, this new version might be an emotional experience, a first exposure to these transportive songs, this compelling world, and the sweet, fractious, funny relationships between headstrong Moana and the even more headstrong reluctant hero she has to corral and remind who he's supposed to be. Dean Diblos, director of both the original animated How to Train Your Dragon and the live-action version, points out that some people simply refuse to watch animated movies, and that a live-action version like this can reach them. In cases like this, though, that's mildly hilarious, given that the argument against watching an animated movie is apparently cartoons are for children. This edition reproduces the for kids version in virtually every way, blunting any argument that it's somehow a more acceptable adult watch. For those familiar with the animated version, though, this is yet another case of a Disney live-action remake that feels entirely superfluous and reductive. It isn't grossly offensive and misguided like some of those remakes, or ambitiously worded like others. It's just a broken bar, the same thing we already got, repeated and repackaged in a pricey, glossy form. There's an argument to be made for reimagining Disney classics for a whole new generation, but the original version of Moana only came out 10 years ago. Nothing about this version asserts itself as unique, necessary, or even particularly interesting. It's an ironic artifact of the modern Disney process, a story about claiming a unique identity that flouts that idea just by existing. The 2026 Moana opens in theaters on July 10. In 2016, we were introduced to a young Polynesian warrior named Moana. In a year when Disney dominated the box office with hits like Zootopia, The Jungle Book, Captain America, Civil War, Finding Dory, and Doctor Strange, Moana was one of the last films up before the Christmas release of Rogue One. As the seventh and potentially final Walt Disney Animation Studios film from iconic directors John Musker and Ron Clements, Moana captivated audiences with its unforgettable protagonists, stunning animation, and standout soundtrack crafted by Tony-winning musical mastermind Lin-Manuel Miranda. Even though it was a critical and financial success, Moana seemed doomed to live a cinematic life as the Disney movie that came after Zootopia. While Zootopia swept awards season, Moana's life on home media and streaming dwarfed Zootopia in ways nobody could have imagined. Since the launch of Disney Plus in 2019, Moana has remained in the top 10, sometimes the top 5, most-watched films across all streaming platforms, completely cementing its place alongside Musker and Clements' other long-enduring classics like The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. And you know what that means. Franchise. I often say on my own time that people couldn't pay me to have strong reactions about live-action Disney remakes one way or the other. Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book, and David Lowery's Pete's Dragon are, in my opinion, the only remakes worth something. In all honesty, those three films seem to be the only ones made by filmmakers who are actually having any sort of real fun. Other remakes are either mostly forgettable, Beauty and the Beast, Peter Pan, Wendy, or incredibly boring, Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent. There are remakes to genuinely anger me have been Robert Zemeckis' dumbfounding remake of Pinocchio, Tim Burton's insanely lifeless remake of Dumbo, and whatever the hell Mark Webb was doing with Snow White. Naturally, when I heard a live-action remake of Moana was in the works, I had two reactions. The Disney fangirl part of my brain was afraid another Musker Clements-directed film would be turned into a dull remake, as was the case with Aladdin and The Little Mermaid. The cinephile in me couldn't help but laugh at how transparently profit-driven the film's existence was. Every studio movie, even the great ones, is made for money. But a Moana remake being announced only 7 years after the original's premiere was insanely comical. It didn't help that the remake was announced the same day as an animated sequel, which was just episodes of a planned Moana series put together to make it feature-length. If Moana 2 was a boring slog with a meandering plot, annoying side characters, a painfully underutilized villain, and forgettable songs, Thomas Kail's live-action remake is the cinematic equivalent of your friends butchering a Beatles song at karaoke. Everything about Moana 2026 is significantly worse than the original 2016 classic. It's so inferior to the original that it fails to justify its existence more than any other remake, including Jon Favreau's immensely pointless remake of The Lion King. If you thought screenwriters Jared Bush, who co-wrote the original, and Daniel Adu Miller, who co-wrote the sequel with Bush, would expand on the lore, give more screen time to other characters, or even write new jokes, you won't find them here. Moana 2026 is very faithful to the original. On paper, that's not a bad thing, right? After all, wasn't the problem with the remakes of Aladdin, Mulan, and Lilo and Stitch that they strayed too far from the original films? Yes, that was a problem. However, that problem can't be solved by just doing the original in a different format. The long and short of it is that the remake is completely devoid of life, taking Disney's most visually stunning animated feature and making it look like every other blockbuster movie that comes out is too insulting to put into words. It may have more color than your average Disney remake, but the magic and vibrancy of the original are completely gone. The production design is surprisingly dull. Even Beauty and the Beast earned its Oscar nomination for production design. Nothing in the movie feels tangible or real. Everything feels like it was shot inside a studio lot or someone's backyard. Musker Clements films have suffered the most in terms of animated films being adapted into live action. Like Aladdin and The Little Mermaid, everything in Moana looks fake, hollow, and depressingly downbeat. Did you like Tamatoa, Jermaine Clement's fun design on the animated film? Sorry, he's a big scary CGI monster now. If you want to see Moana, Catherine Laga'aia, and Maui, Dwayne Johnson, do the exact same things they did 10 years ago and nothing else, then congratulations. This is the movie for you. Moana 2026 being nothing more than a shot-for-shot remake wouldn't be such a hindrance if the movie actually looked good. Take last year's live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon as an example of how to do it correctly. Dragons is also shot-for-shot, and it too often fails to justify its own existence. However, the movie itself is still good. Why? Because Dean DeBlos is a great director who took the lessons he learned from directing the original animated films and applied them to a new medium. Despite it being his first live-action film, DeBlos directed Dragons with an unmistakable aura of confidence, energy, and skill, kind of like Brad Bird when he made the jump in 2011. Moana does not have that. Thomas Kail made the jump from Broadway and television to big-budget blockbusters, and the transition was not smooth. Kail's direction ranges from lifeless to extremely confusing. You would think a filmmaker with an extensive background in musical theater, Kail has a Tony Award for Best Direction of a Musical for Hamilton, would know how a musical number is supposed to look and feel. Instead, nearly every musical performance has actors standing around while the camera boringly moves along with no sense of energy or life. The musical numbers are not passionate, and the action sequences are not thrilling. One can't help but wonder how and why Kail was chosen to direct this movie to begin with, as his feature directorial debut no less. I can't help but indulge in my own conspiracy theory that Kail only got the job because it was easier, and frankly, cheaper, to hire a theater and TV director with no theatrical experience than to ask Lin-Manuel Miranda to direct the film instead. Had Miranda helmed the project, it probably would have had a slightly better chance at being decent. If there is any major non-musical bright spot of the film, it's Catherine Laga'aia as Moana. Despite this being her first major film role, Laga'aia commands the screen and completely holds her own. She may not fully possess La'ai Kravalo's exact vocal prowess, but Catherine channels her charm, innocence, and strength in every scene. As far as Disney princess castings are concerned, Catherine Laga'aia is far and away the best casting since Lily James as Cinderella. I greatly look forward to whatever she does next and wish for her to leave her mark in a role that is entirely her own. As for Dwayne Johnson, he's fine. I will never get on the bandwagon of people who claim The Rock has no acting talent whatsoever.